Every year, thousands of missionaries serving all over the world return home from honorable missions. They've experienced difficulties, shared testimony, and witnessed miracles. And who will hear those amazing stories? A few hundred people over the course of their life? These are stories that uplift. These are stories that encourage. These are stories that inspire. On Return with Honor, we aim to share these stories with the world. Welcome to Return with Honor. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Return with Honor, the show where we interview recently returned missionaries. I'm Chuck James.
I'm Christine James. Tonight, we're interviewing Ashley Whitlock. And where did you serve your mission?
I served in the Texas Houston East Mission.
Where did your sister serve?
She served, I think, in that same mission. Were you Spanish speaking?
No, I was actually English speaking, but I've had a couple of Spanish sisters serve with me a couple of times, but never. I had one companion that became an English sister, her last transfer with me as well. Okay.
Yeah, my sister served in the Houston, I think it was the Houston East.
I'm texting her right now.
Is that the Pasadena? Is that in that mission?
Yes, Pasadena is in that mission. That's Spanish speaking, but yeah.
Okay, that's I think where she spent most of her time. So that was a few years ago. So
Texas East?
Yeah, Houston.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting.
But wait, when did she serve?
She served probably, it's been a few years back now. So probably.
Did she have President Crawford by chance?
I don't know. We'll have to ask her. Christine.
Because if she served, let's see, I got home about almost a year and 4 months. So if she got home, or if she served about a year and a half to 3 years ago, she had President Crawford, or even more, because he only had a year left when I was there. So pound when she was there, she might have had him.
Yeah, could be. It's a small world.
It is a small world after all.
Well, I know she loved the area and she loved her mission, and I'm sure you did too. She had nothing but good things to say about it.
Oh yes, I loved my mission. I was in the country, so it was fun to see like all the country folk, but at the same time feel a southern spirit. You know, like how people say the southern people are so kind, and it's completely true. I mean, they are super nice, even though they'll offer you their bed, but they won't listen to the gospel sometimes. But that's how generous they are. I would sometimes think that they'd be like, do you need water? Do you need the bathroom? Do you need a bed to rest in? But don't teach about Jesus Christ. You're like, okay, whatever.
Okay, so she said that was the mission she went to, and she was in the NTC November of 2006.
So a few years.
Okay, so she had like the mission president probably just before, 2 mission presidents before mine.
Okay. Yeah, she came home June 2007. So
yeah. I knew it was a few.
Yeah, so she missed him.
Yeah,
that's still so cool.
It is. So, what was kind of the biggest culture shock that you experienced, or the biggest surprise that you experienced when you got into the mission field?
Physically wise, I think just the humidity, because I went in the dead of summer, July, so that was hard to adjust to physically, and like just the strenuous of going around everywhere in the heat and try not to die, and you had to constantly drink water. And one of the things they said is you have to drink water on fast Sunday because we were walking around all the time, so you had to drink or else you would get dehydrated. The biggest culture shock was probably how big and how wide a ward was, their area. Because I'm from Utah and I'm so used to wards being compacted into like maybe 2 miles of each other, maybe not even that. I mean, my ward when I was a teenager was almost like only 2 streets. And so that was probably the biggest culture, being like, where are all the Mormons? They're not next to each other.
Yeah, I can see where that'd be a little bit of a difference.
It was, because I lived in Idaho for a little bit, so it was different to see a bunch of churches, but definitely the biggest culture shock was seeing way more churches and huge area for the ward, because especially in a country where it's like one person will live like 20 minutes away from another person. So a drive at least. If it was biking, you're like an hour. Walking, you're like 2 hours. But I think that's probably the biggest culture shock I remember experiencing.
No, that's good. What was your favorite new food, and what was the worst that you experienced while you were on your mission?
The newest food I think I ever tried was alligator. And that was probably the worst one.
Really? Didn't like it?
Yeah, because I think I got a bad restaurant. A member took us out, and alligator, it tastes fine. It's just really chewy. It's almost like I don't know how to describe it. It's almost like you're eating rubber in a sense, just very chewy and slimy rubber. The best dish I had, I heard that they made good Southern food grill wise. This one less active guy, he made the best grilled chicken and salmon I ever had, and I tried to get the recipe from him, and he wouldn't give me it because he's like, it's a family recipe, and I'm like, come on, please. He's like, nope, and I'm like, ugh. So Southern people, when they give you their best food, they keep it a secret.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I think they're certainly known for grilling there, so I imagine you had lots of good barbecued food.
Oh yes, there was very good barbecue food. Some of venison, some. I never had squirrel. I always wanted to try squirrel. I never had any of the stuff that people said. I never had squirrel. I never had frog legs. I never had crawfish, but it's because none of the members ever were making them when I was over. It was like I always missed just the season when it was good, and so. But probably the best was definitely that one guy's grilled salmon and chicken. It was so good.
It sounds good, actually.
It melted in your mouth enough where it stayed there, but where it didn't feel like it like disappeared quickly. It was just so delicious. I wish I had gotten the recipe from him.
So as you prepared for your mission, what was kind of your biggest challenge for you getting on your mission?
I think the biggest challenge, I was so worried about if I could really change people, because growing up in Utah, you're around lots of people of the same religion, LDS, and you're just saying constant stuff all the time, like, oh yeah, the atonement and the apostles, and you're so used to it, and you think everyone knows the religion and they're all fine, and no one suffers problems, which is not true. But going on a mission, I was so worried because I knew that there would be people that would suffer with smoking or with abusive things, and so I was so worried about, Heavenly Father, can I really change anybody? Can I really do this? I mean, I was 21 when I went, and so I missed the age change, and so I asked Heavenly Father to help me in saying, Heavenly Father, I just need confidence that I can change someone. And he didn't really affect me beforehand of saying like, yes, you're going to change someone and you're going to be the best sister missionary. But I remember having a blessing in the sense where he said, your testimony will be strong and it will help you with your life. And so I said, okay, I can change someone in bearing my testimony if that's just something little. And as I progressed on my mission, little by little, I saw that I did change people in my own way. I wasn't like a very super blunt missionary all the time, but when I was, I could tell that I had helped someone in some way. And that gave me such confidence in that Heavenly Father trusted me, someone who grew up in the church, that I could actually help change someone's life. And I also remember my dad talking to me and friends as well and saying, because you grew up in an LDS family, people want to see that example and they want to see the happiness that you bring. And that kind of changed my attitude as well, and realizing I'm an example without realizing it because I live the way I live. And when people saw that, I was kind of amazed when they mentioned it, but it was really nice to have that constant confidence and from Heavenly Father saying, you grew up in this and you can change people's lives. So that was something that I was so worried about, and that I overcame a little bit more on my mission, and I felt so proud of that I could change someone's life. A little Mormon girl.
That's a good example, or a good point, because we don't realize, sometimes we take things for granted, and we don't realize that the things that we do naturally every day without even thinking that people are watching and looking and going, oh, that's how you do that. Or, oh, that must be why they're happy because they do this. Or, I know when I watch people, for the people that I admire, and I've done that. So I know that other people do that for us as well, or to us as well.
Yeah. And I think another point that you bring up, which I think is kind of an important one, is that, and I've heard other people talk about this. As you were talking, it really reminded me of a guy on my mission that talked about praying and looking for an answer. And a lot of times that answer doesn't come until we show the faith and we start doing. And that's what you did. You wanted an answer, but you kept moving forward in faith, and you got that answer as you continue to move forward in faith. I think that's often how it happens. So great example, great experience. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how would you say the church is doing in Houston East area? Is it growing?
I would say yes, just because being on my mission, there are many people that baptize, but I also think that the people's hearts are being softened down there, because I heard one sister, after I left months later, she was in that area and she had talked to someone that I had talked to, and her heart had been softened. And so I think the Lord is working. Whether people don't see many baptisms, I don't see that as like always a result. I mean, my mission president, he would always say, make it fit. And whether if that was baptism or whether if that was changing someone or softening their hearts, we did that because that's how the Lord works. He makes it work to that person's individual need. So I say, yes, the Lord is definitely progressing in the South, and that people are becoming much more aware of what Mormons really believe instead of always judging us right away. And that's what I noticed on my mission more, is that the Lord is working down there a lot. And hopefully everyone will be all Mormons instead of all Southern Baptists in the next 2 years.
Well, it's good to hear that it's growing. And, you mentioned that you were in a lot of different wards. And so that's an indication, too, that the church is pretty strong there. Otherwise, it's, in areas where it's not as strong, you see more districts and those kinds of things. So,
yeah, I mean, I served in some 4 good areas, most of them country, and then 1 city. And so it was kind of fun to see the different sides of how the church grows. I mean, in the country where you think you knock on someone's door, 20 minutes later, you're like, is this the right person? Or is this going to change someone? And it does. You are softening that person's heart one day at a time, either if that's wearing them down to listen to the missionaries, or if you're actually changing someone and softening their heart to hear about Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So it works.
Oh, great. How about any challenges that you faced on your mission? What were some of the bigger challenges you faced there, and how did you overcome those?
I think probably one of my bigger challenges was I always questioned having a testimony of the Book of Mormon. And I had read it before for Young Women's Projects. I had read it with my family. I knew the Book of Mormon. Like, if you asked me where was what, I could answer it, because my dad and mom have been very faithful in sharing or doing family scriptures and prayer in the morning with us, or every day. So I knew the Book of Mormon practically by heart, but I never fully read it for myself. And then I tried to do it. I didn't really do it before my mission, but I still kept at it. And I was training. That's when I was kind of the feelings of, Heavenly Father, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, because I don't have a testimony of the Book of Mormon, and I'm supposed to have a testimony. And this is what me growing up in Utah felt like, because everyone would have a testimony. And me feeling like I don't have a testimony, even though I believed in it all my life. I was so worried, and I was like, I can't teach someone if I can't. And I was training at this time, so this is in my 12 weeks. And I remember most of the time I thought answers came from like members or things. I never expected an answer from Preach My Gospel, but that's still scripture because it's prophets and their voices, and I didn't realize that. And chapter 5 talks about how saying like what the Book of Mormon is to you in the first paragraph, and like what you need in order to just be a good missionary. I don't have my Preach My Gospel on me, but I just remember highlighting a certain sentence and saying like, your testimony is all that you believe in the Book of Mormon. And I was just so happy because I believed in the Book of Mormon, and I was like, that's all that's needed. That's all that's needed from Heavenly Father. And it reminded me of Trevor Holland's talk and saying, sometimes all it is just a belief right now. And I just got overwhelmed. I almost cried in the middle of a district meeting of all things when all your companions are near you and everything. So I just remember feeling so happy, and now I know that I have a testimony that the Book of Mormon is true because it's answered so many of my questions and helped me answer other people's questions. If it was a belief at first and I didn't get a confirmation answer like most people thought of the Book of Mormon, it was little by little, step by step, which was kind of surprising. Most people don't believe, or that doesn't happen to like some people. But I was very grateful for all those little experiences, and because of all those little things, I've gained that testimony that the Book of Mormon is true, which I could share with someone. That was probably the biggest spiritual challenge on my mission. There's always companion challenges, and there's always like mission president where you're like, why do I have to do this? Obedience rule. And there's of course trying to stay on curfew. And any missionary that listens to this, it's true. Be obedient in listening to your mission president. He knows what he's doing. He is called of God. But I think that was probably my biggest spiritual challenge. And really, did I have a testimony of the Book of Mormon? Because I knew the plan of salvation was true since I was 8, I think. But I was so worried about the Book of Mormon. But because of little things, I believe that it's true, and I have a testimony of it.
You know, I wonder if people who have grown up and from birth as a member, if they do have struggles with that, because I think that it is true that you do get a gradual testimony. It just continually grows as you grow up. And I think that, you know, we hear these stories about Joseph Smith or other prophets who have prayed and they get this confirmation all at once. And that doesn't always happen to those who've been raised in the church since they were born. And I think that might be an insecurity for several people, not just you. I've heard other people talk about that even, you know, that they wondered, gosh, do I have a testimony? And then after they've prayed and thought about it, they're like, of course I do. I've known it, you know, all my life. And so they have their own experience, but it's kind of sweet to have that. And I'm glad you shared that.
That's good.
Yeah.
Great story. Great experience. And certainly one of the benefits of serving a mission, it allows you to really focus on those spiritual matters where sometimes in the normal life, I guess we'll call it, you don't take that time to really to focus on those things. And it sounds like you really had that opportunity, which is great.
Yeah, because when you're in high school, you're kind of in that mojo of what's important in high school. And then now that the age change happened, I want to encourage teenagers to be like, you have to set that time apart so you can get closer to God. So you can read the Book of Mormon for yourself. Because if you don't, an answer won't come, or something's going to stop you from your mission. And I hope when I have kids one day, I want to teach them, like, gain your own testimony, in that you have to do the things that God has commanded, the little things. And that's what helped me a little bit on my mission, because I was in college, so I kind of gained more time, I guess you could say. But people that are coming out of high school, I want to encourage them, go to those things that God has said, and you will be so much better prepared, and you will gain that understanding of obedience as well. And that'll help you on your mission a lot.
That's great.
Well, speaking of that, so I have several teenagers who are in high school right now or junior high, and they struggle with being very, very busy. They live in a small town, and so a lot is expected of them to kind of be a part of a lot of organizations and a lot of things. So sometimes it's hard to find the time. So they even question that themselves. How can I find the time? So any thoughts on that, on where they can, from someone who just was there not too long ago, where can they squeeze out that time? Where are they wasting time maybe, or where can they find time that they just maybe don't realize?
Well, I don't know your family schedule, but I think first of all, they need to find a question. And when they have that question, then they'll find time. It's like a teenager, like when you have a boyfriend or something, you will find time for that boyfriend. So I think help them realize that if they have a question, they'll find time, whether if that's at night. Like my personal time to study scriptures, I actually like in the night, surprisingly. In the morning, it's hard for me. I don't know why, because I get in that mojo to like go do something, or I've kind of learned that. And on the mission, it was different. I had the Spirit's help, thankfully. But when I'm at home, my personal time is at night, because I feel like I can concentrate on Heavenly Father. Because in the morning I pray, but scriptures at night, it helps me be like, Heavenly Father, this has all happened today. What am I supposed to learn from this? And so I think a good time is either morning or night. That's just preferably any day. But I think make sure they have a question, whether if that's a long-term one or just today being like, Heavenly Father, how can I better study today, or whatever. But help them realize that they should have a question for Heavenly Father every time they study their scriptures, or else they'll just be like, Mom and Dad are telling me to read scriptures, or prophets are telling me to read scriptures.
That's great advice.
That's what I just learned as I mission, especially, and coming home. I'm like, I need a question, or else my scripture time is pointless, because I'm not engaged and not wanting to listen to the Spirit if I don't have any desire.
I think you're right. That's really good advice. That if you have a question, you're right. You're going to want to know the answer, so you're going to find the time, and it gives purpose to what you're doing. So that's great advice. Thank you.
And then we just this last week in seminary, we had a guest come to seminary, and it was our second counselor first counselor in our state presidency came and spoke, and all the kids some of the kids had written out questions that they had so that he could answer them. And he said, the only answers you're going to remember from today are the ones that you asked. And so I thought that was a really good point about questioning and having questions, is that if you're asking the questions, you'll find the answers and you'll remember them, and they'll be important to you. And it just kind of goes along with everything you said. So
yeah, absolutely.
Great advice.
Yeah.
So can you share any experiences about a special person or family on your mission?
Oh, let's see. How many can I go?
However many you want.
I remember, I'll go in chronological, I guess. I won't say too many, but my first family that I absolutely loved, it was a less active father and a wife who had heard about the church through him, but she's still very much like, I don't want to do this. But we were introduced to them first at a family gathering, and half the family was LDS and half of it wasn't. So it was very like, okay, treading like on glass here to like not offend anyone. And there was like 20 people too, so it's not like you can be like, oh, there's only one person we got. But one of the members, they said, we want you to go for that person because she's ready to learn the gospel. And we said, okay, we'll do it. And so we first gave them a plan to like fast from technology for a week. And it worked, and they came again to the next week. And that's when we taught about the first vision and Joseph Smith. And this mom was still kind of like hesitant, not wanting to like listen to us fully, but we decided, okay, we're gonna go for it anyway. And then the next week they came again, so we said, okay, the Spirit's working here. And I'm Greenie being like, okay, she's come 3 times. She's willing to listen. And then she asked some important questions about like seeing a daughter again or a child again because they had died or they were worried about that. And so we answered their questions and we said, we'd love to come to you next time. And the next time we were coming down, we actually went to their house an hour before. The husband invited us. What was funny is the wife, she didn't know until like 5 minutes before we're coming. The husband didn't tell her. So she's like, are you kidding? And when we get there, it's like all tense and we're stressed out and we're like, oh my gosh, she's going to kill us. She's giving us this like glare and we're like panting. We're like, it's okay. We're going to talk about gospel because we were thinking of plan salvation, like second half, but we decided to go with gospel of Jesus Christ. And so we went for it, and it was a very tender moments because the dad was expressing his emotions for his wife, being like, I want to go back to the church. I want to be with you forever. And she's like, I don't know about this. I mean, I don't want to be half and half. It's like I either want all Mormon and not Mormon. And we're like, okay. And this was such a tender moment because we started talking about faith in Jesus Christ, and you have to go and act on this if you really want to be with your family forever. And so in this instance, it was about families being together is what she wanted. We found this out later, but she was wanting families to be together. And we shared kind of like the Waters of Mormon scripture where it says like, we all suffer together, we all weep together, and we support each other. And when she read that, she told us, I needed y'all to say this to me. I need to hear it. And after that, it was so sweet to see her tender spirit willing to listen. Like she was so nervous, but she wanted it more. So it was fun to see her progress and wanting to learn more knowledge and wanting to gain that. And she gained that testimony. It was so pure and so joyous. I was so happy for her. And when she got baptized, I was so happy because I was like, she's now going to be with her family. She'll get to the temple. And it was just such a tender moment to see her progress in the gospel and want those things for herself because she knew what was important in that she wanted to be with her family forever. And she would go as much as she could to accomplish that goal. So that was a really tender moment. In that sense.
Yeah, great experience.
I'm trying to think. There's another family. I'm trying to think of what areas they were in because it helps me to remember the area to remember the person. I think it was in Jasper. There was a young girl that, this is kind of after I left, but it was kind of when I was there, but she was wanting to listen to us in the sense, I guess we found this out later, but she was wanting to have peace. But it took us forever to find out. But we were slowly getting to know her and being like, why do you like smoke and why do you do all these things? And she was kind of like, oh, I'm just doing it for fun and I'm not in school. I can do whatever I want. And so kind of that teenager feel of doing whatever you want so you can be distracted from the bad feelings. Because every teenager, if they do something, they're just trying to distract themselves. And so as we talked to her, we started noticing that she wanted to feel the Spirit little by little more and that she was wanting something different in her life. And then sadly, I had to leave the area. But later, she started to actually change, and her whole family started to come to lessons, and they all got baptized eventually. And I thought that was such a tender mercy from Heavenly Father, in that they saw us missionaries as an example. Even though I wasn't able to be part of the ending a little bit, I still was able to help with that process and able to see that change in that parents and her, and that they were all wanting to change and that they wanted peace in their lives. I don't know if they probably had many other questions answered, but that was so cool to see that they finally realized you can have peace with this gospel, family peace, eternal peace, whatever you want kind of peace. It's all there. And so I loved them for that.
That's great. And I think a lot of missionary work is that it's not always that you get to contact somebody, begin teaching them, and see it all the way through to the temple. And it's usually not just one person. It usually is several people involved in helping people through that process. And I guess sometimes you're the sower, sometimes you're the reaper, kind of.
Yeah. You're kind of like, man, I want you, it's that missionary experience where you want to be there with their whole process. And that's how I was with my first gal with the Plan of Salvation. I saw her whole thing up to like baptism. And then this girl, I saw her just kind of get the lessons, and I wanted to see everything else, but I never did. But it was really cool to see still the progress in that you could change someone and that you were there in their moments. Well, that was really cool.
Great.
And it's a good point to bring up.
Yeah, definitely. Not every missionary will see every time. Sometimes there will be emergency transfers. Sometimes there will be companion swaps. Sometimes there will be things that happen and you just get mad, but it all works out in the end.
So kind of thinking about how it really takes a lot of times more than one person. What role do you see members playing in missionary work, and how, do you have any advice for members on how to be good member missionaries?
Members are important because they help someone feel safe coming to church, and they help someone feel like they have a friend. It helps when members do come to lessons. If members can come, bring them, whether if that's someone the age of the investigator or someone that has the same interest. Friends are friends no matter the age gap. I mean, I have a lady that she's an atheist, but yet she's like, I don't know, like 40 years older than me, and she's one of my good friends. I mean, if you can connect someone, it's better to connect one way or another. I wish members, I try to do this myself. It's hard in a very dense LDS country place before, obviously, but if you can somehow try and find the missionaries willing to go out and realize your purpose to bring people to the gospel, then it helps so much. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to figure that out, being now a returned missionary, and being like, how can I do that? Because it doesn't seem like it, especially BYUI, but I want to do that because it's fun when you connect with people. It's fun when you see the gospel and everything, and so I love it. So I'd say members are super key in order to keep someone excited about the gospel and to make sure that they stay with it and understand for themselves instead of let this person just kind of discover for themselves, and who knows what they'll be exposed to. I mean, a friend helps someone be able to know what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's great. So they can kind of help them through that conversion process as they experience new things and maybe have questions, those kinds of things. Being a good friend really would help.
Definitely, yes.
Oh, great. So were there any of those crazy experiences you had that you refrained writing home about because you didn't want mom to worry or fly over there and pick you up or something?
I can't say. She just barely entered the room. No, you're good. Trying to think if there's any crazy experiences. I never luckily got shot at, but I think the scariest was hearing gunshots outside of our place, middle of the night. That was scary. And because it was, apparently members told us what was happening. It was two gangs going out to war. And so we were like, okay, that was scary.
Was that in the city area?
No, that was in the country. That was even scarier because it was very dark outside and there was no lights. And if you're in a trailer, you're kind of like, I mean, it was like a trailer house, but that was kind of scary. I think a spiritual scary experience was me and my 2 companions. I was in a trio. We were going up to a member's house. They were in the middle of nowhere. Of course, it was dark outside. Only time we could go visit them. And we're walking down the street to go to their house. And I just get this awful feeling. Never felt it before. It was just this, it wasn't a stop. It was just like, you don't want to go any farther than this. And I was kind of like, what? It was this fear of, not a fear of getting hurt, but fear of something's going to go bad. Whether if you're hurt or someone else will get hurt, something bad is going to happen. And I was like, okay, that's weird. But I kept on walking, trying to be an optimistic picture of being like, oh, whatever, I'll go. I'm protected. And again, I get this feeling, and it says, don't go. And so I tell my companions, I'm like, sisters, I feel like we shouldn't go to this member's house, or this less active's house. And they're like, yeah, we feel so too. Then all of a sudden, like, we see a light turn on in the upper area. But it was someone really creepy, like, what's it? It was just a really creepy figure standing there and watching us. And we just felt like, we're not going in. Even though the lights were all on downstairs, but one light was on upstairs. But it was just a scary feeling that something was going to bad happen. So we never went there at night. We went there one time during the day. And we realized why. Because the member, she came out and she was doing some crazy stuff. And we were like, we don't want to come back here again. So.
You'll listen to those promptings.
Yeah. I mean, there was another cool, like, you know, like missionaries are always chased by dogs. One time I got chased by a dog. Well, a couple of other times, but this was the scariest one, where my companions were in front, and one of my companions, she was like riding along and everything, and then this gigantic bulldog comes out charging at her, and it's barking and baring its teeth, and we're like, don't stop! And she stops, and we're like, no! And all of a sudden, this dog, right before it hits her, it like, I kid you not, it looked like it bumped into an invisible wall. And we're like, and then my other companion, she like continues past the dog, and it tries to go get her, and it can't. And I go past it, and the dog can't get anywhere. It's almost like it's afraid now to go beyond this boundary. That was a cool kind of protective spiritual experience that we were like, God protects us.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never had any gun pointed at me, thankfully, but it's scary to have those experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We were talking about how my sister served in basically the same area you were in, and my mom just told me, actually, she was just talking about my sister and her mission, and they went back to my sister's mission a little bit after she was home, and they went to an area and they were going to stay there, and my mom was like, are you sure it's safe to stay here? And my sister was like, oh yeah, it's not a problem, you know. And my mom said after about a couple of days, my sister was like, I don't feel as comfortable here as I used to. And I think it speaks to that, you know, as a missionary, you are protected, because you are expected to go into all parts of the world, and some of the parts of the world are not great, but often the missionaries do have that sense of being protected and watched over, and things tend to work out. So great experience.
Yeah. I'm grateful. You'll have to hear my brother and hear his stories, because he's got some good ones. But I don't have that. I can't think of any off the top of my head beyond those. But
that's okay. It's kind of nice not to have those.
I know. Maybe I've forgotten when Heavenly Father's erased it from my memory, and I'm like, yeah, I was shot at. And I'm like, I can't remember if I was. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So.
Never mind.
Go ahead.
I just remember a crazy sister thing that happens a lot. Not really dangerous, but crazy still, is someone kind of proposing to you.
Really?
Huh.
Someone did. He didn't do it like out loud, but he basically kind of told me he wanted to marry me. Mm-hmm. And he was our next door neighbor. And so he would like tap on our walls, trying to like do like communication, and we're like, we can't do that. And we did it for a little bit, trying to be like neighborly, like anything, but then he started getting like more flirty with me, and we're like, okay, we can't do this. And eventually I got this letter, like a long letter saying, Sister Whitlock, I love you and you're the best. I want to know you, and I love you so much. I want to get to know you. Kind of repeated, but it was this basically love hard letter saying, I want to marry you. What was hard is he was a 40-year-old, but he had the mind of a 17-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like, no, thank you. I'm good. And then luckily I was actually transferred from that area. My mission president. Yeah. It was like, we called him, we're like, mission president, like, I've been basically proposed to, so I need to go. And he's like, well, you're being transferred anyway. I'm like, oh, okay. But sometimes that happens to sister. I never thought it would happen to me. I was like, no way. And it did. And I was like, it actually happens.
That's interesting.
And then if your daughters get proposed to, tell them not to dress fancy. Don't bring any makeup. Don't look pretty. I mean, I tried not to, but sometimes it happens anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure part of it's that spirit, and people get, I think people do get confused with that when they see the spirit that you carry around with you. And
that's it is attractive. Yeah.
Yep.
So how has your mission changed you or the way you see the world?
I think I see better in people, in that there is more, I notice that there is a lot more like bad stuff around me, I guess you could say. I notice more of the evil side, but I've noticed more of the good that happens at the same time. Because growing up in Utah, you kind of are around people with good values all the time. So you're kind of like, whatever, like if someone's doing bad stuff, you kind of have like lots of friends to help you. And so when I got on a mission, it was kind of like I noticed the bad more, but I also noticed the good in people that actually wanted to change. The good in that people want to have that light in their life, and how, in a sense, how good I have it, that I actually love my parents, that I talk to them and I do appreciate them, that they do love me back and all that stuff. I think prayer-wise is different as well. I mean, because on the mission, you kind of are in that mojo at first of like, bless the food, help us have a good day, help us find people, the usual, more missionary prayer. But now it's more of like I try and say, Heavenly Father. I'm kind of slacking coming home from the mission, but I'm still getting back into the habit again of, Heavenly Father, I really need help in this aspect of my life. Like if it's school, I'm like, I need help to start this paper. I need help to do this. Or Heavenly Father, I'm going through boy issues. I need help with that. I'm struggling. So I'm trying to make it more very specific in my time, instead of just saying, help me be good in school, help me have fun, help me get along with my roommates, blah, blah, blah. It's trying to be like, this is what I want in my aspect of my life so that I can change things. Because I noticed that prayer is that essential thing to talk to Heavenly Father if I really want to talk to Him. Because if I don't, then I personally boil everything up inside until I sometimes blow up at someone. But I can hide it really well. But if I talk to my Father, I can realize what things are stupid to keep in and what things I actually need to talk about. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is prayer, that actually changed in my life more. Scripture study was kind of already there. I know scriptures more, memorize scriptures. Not the best at it, but definitely that. I miss the temple. Not being able to go to the temple a lot, that's what I missed. And now being able to go more, and I kind of go myself because I like to ponder myself, but missing the temple, definitely that.
Well, and I think going on a mission does make you appreciate some of the things that you didn't really, you kind of always appreciated, but only more on a surface level. And then when you don't have those things around you, you really go, wow, I really miss that. I kind of took that for granted a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think, you bring up a great point about prayer. It really is a missed opportunity if all we do is kind of give a rote prayer. If we don't really communicate with our Father in heaven, it's our loss. It's not his loss. We're the ones who miss out on that opportunity. So that's a great growth experience that you had. Do you have any advice for those preparing to go on a mission?
Don't worry about memorizing scriptures. You're going to do that anyway. Worry about, well, not worry, I should say. That's a bad verb. More like get excited that the Lord trusts you, and that, the Lord trusted you, for goodness sake. So prepare to be his missionary. And in a sense of, I'm trying to think of what I did. That was so long ago. Because I tried to memorize scriptures, and I was trying to be like, get to know everything. But that was kind of pointless, because then you're just kind of in the mojo of learning to teach people. I know. This is what I remember. Learn to recognize the Spirit in your own way. Whether that's going one day and trying to go on every little impression and see what happens from it. I definitely say before you go on a mission, prepare with the Spirit. That way you can go easier in going into the MTC and feeling the spirit of learning to teach, and then going training and everything. I think that spirit is so key, because you can memorize scriptures, you can pray a lot, you can ask for help, but you ask for help but you don't know how God speaks to you, it's pointless. So I would say study chapter 4, preach my gospel, and recognize how the Spirit speaks to you.
That's great advice, and probably good advice for everybody, really.
Yes.
Especially for missionaries, since you're going out and teaching so many people, and you're trying to just follow those impressions. And because I remember speaking to one lady, and she was kind of like, at first, really weird. It was my impression to go up to this lady, and we had walked to this one referral place. It's taking us forever. So when we get there, we finally get there, and there's also this dog that just comes charging at us. It's a little itty bitty dog, but it's like ferocious and like gnashing its teeth. And we're like, and then someone says, stop! And we're like, and the dog stops, and we're like, she's like, turn around slowly. And we're like, us or the dog? And I guess she meant us, because we turn and she's there, and we're like, okay. And she tells her dog to go back, but we're like, hi. And she's like, y'all have 10 seconds to tell me why you're here, else I'm going to stick my other dog on you. We're like, we're missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ. We have an awesome message for you. Would you be willing to listen for 2 minutes? And she's like, fine. And we're like, okay. And it was just because neither of my companions wanted to go to this lady's house. Like, both of them were like, no, we're done tracting. We don't want to do anything more. And I'm like, guys, it's one more house. Come on. This is that one time, one house. Which I said that millions of times before.
Right.
And so they've decided to follow me. And she turned out to be willing to listen. And again, I had to leave the area, but she was progressing and like wanting to learn the gospel. And I was so happy. I was like, yes, I had that impression. I'm awesome. My companions were like, all right, Sister Whitlock, you're awesome. And I'm like, yeah. Then I'll follow y'all next time when you have an impression. Kind of like that.
Good.
Kind of like not gloating, but in the same sense, you're like, follow the Spirit at the same time.
Yeah. I think it's good to recognize that and cheer yourself on and pat yourself on the back. And you don't want to gloat, like you said, but I think that's good to do that.
Well, it's important to recognize when you have received a prompting and you've acted on it, and then you get to see that, hey, that really was a prompting. So I think that's good.
Yeah.
If you were able to gather up the missionaries that are out there serving in the world right now and give them one piece of advice, what advice would you give them?
Same as always, be obedient to all of the mission rules, not just the few select that are easy. obeying the rules means you try and stay under that hour. You try and get home on time, or else you lose that precious trust with Heavenly Father in a sense. Because He already trusted you to, He already gave you the letter saying, because I give you permission, you are you're promising with me that you are willing to obey all of my rules. Just like you already obey my commandments as a member, you are a higher calling, you have higher rules now. You have to build that trust with my Father, or else you can't. It takes forever to gain it back, and blessings get thrown away, and it's so important to obey all of the rules, because if not, that trust is gone from Heavenly Father, and you can gain it back, but it's precious time wasted in a sense.
Yeah, no, that's great. Our stake president says something along the lines of obedience brings blessings and strict obedience brings miracles. And, you're talking about that strict obedience, not just being obedient, but being strictly obedient. And that is true when you see those miracles happen.
Just recently at a Devo at the BYUI, someone talked about how obedience opened the keys to heaven. And that was such a unique way of hearing it, in the sense of, because you hear obedience bring blessings, but when he said obedience opens the key to heaven, I was like, oh, that makes sense. Because it's that gate into heaven. It's that gate to bring forth God's gospel, for you to grow, for you to gain those blessings. And so
absolutely,
truly, it is obedience. You can gain everything else on your mission, scriptures and members and baptism or whatever else. I mean, all that stuff will come. But to commit yourself to the Lord, it's that obedience. That's what I would say to every missionary.
Oh, good. How about for parents? How can they help prepare their young man or young woman to go on a mission?
Oh, goodness. I think with sons, if parents want to help sons, I would try and help the son recognize what keys he has with the Melchizedek priesthood he will hold. The powers that he will wield are literally from God, and that it's a privilege. I would help them try and recognize the importance of what the Melchizedek priesthood is and why this is part of God's plan. Because they have that special calling from Heavenly Father that sisters don't, but we have a calling to also try and bring that gentleness, in the sense, to the brethren. And so I guess for parents, I would say study something that maybe you were curious about, that you want your child to understand, maybe. I'm trying to think. My parents just kind of told me to go to mission prep, which I did, and I trusted my parents. I trusted what they said. I tried to take it all in, and I tried to do what they said, because I knew that they were following Heavenly Father, so I tried to follow their advice. I don't know if I'm making much sense for parents-wise, but
yeah, absolutely.
Don't overload your kid, I guess. Don't overload them and give them all the answers, but give them questions to consider. Give them advice if you know they're going somewhere dangerous, being like, okay, don't be stupid. But spiritual wise, give them stuff that they can discover for themselves and everything. Enough to make them curious the entire mission, but not enough to overload them, I guess.
Goes back to that having a question kind of thing. So it's good advice. Is there anything we haven't talked that we haven't asked you that you wanted to talk about?
Has anyone asked any questions about companions? Because I have some advice on companion stuff. I mean, I don't know if anyone's asked questions.
We have heard a lot of missionaries have mentioned that companions are difficult. I think we've heard that probably from
most will say that sometimes that's one of the challenges that they face.
So yeah, let's hear that.
I'm just gonna say that if you're angry at your companion, you need to bring it up sooner rather than later, or else you can't teach the gospel. Because it's so hard to do anything. Yeah, you can kind of fake it at the beginning and teach because you know this first vision, you kind of know things. But if you really want to change someone, you need to change yourself. In getting angry at your companion, fine. You can get angry at them, just forgive each other later. Elders, I loved elders for that. Elders were pretty good at that. They would be like, we're angry at each other for a day, but then we're good the next day. Sisters, we tend to bottle up because we want to be nice and happy. But with some of my sisters, I would be like, what are you angry at? Like, what did I do? And one sister, she said, it was so silly, but I stopped it. She said, you say the word sweet way too many times. I'd be like, yeah, sweet, let's do it. And she got so annoyed with it, and she didn't tell me for weeks. And I said, just tell me what you're angry at. And so she helped. We both eventually gave up our arguments. I was like, well, you don't do dishes, or well, you go on in the lesson. You don't let me talk. And she's like, well, you do this. So once you bring everything out on the table, it's so much easier. It's kind of like you're being like Christ. Christ telling like the hypocrites, being like, you're hypocrites, or you're doing this, and they'd be like, well, da 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 da. And then people saw what was really going on. And if you do that with your companion, you're letting out anger a little bit, which is sometimes needed, but it gets rid of all that anger, and the Spirit can come in a whole lot easier. So if you're angry, you need to bring it up way sooner. Don't draw it out. It's awful. So, because I'm not saying I had awful companions. Mm-hmm. I had like maybe one or two that I did get angry at, but you got to bring it up sooner rather than later, or else things just totally mess up.
That's good advice, and kind of goes back to that wasted time that you talked about earlier. You know, the longer you wait, the more time you've lost in doing better things. So
yeah, because the Lord's time is so precious. It took me a little bit to recognize that this is the Lord's time, but when you realize that, you get in your mission mindset. You're ready to go. You're ready to focus on the Lord. If missionaries can recognize that so much sooner and get over whatever is bothering them, if that's companions or members, it will work out a whole lot better, and the Lord will bless you in more ways than you can tell.
I love that. I love how you brought that out, that this is the Lord's time. I'm glad for that.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. You've been great guest. We really appreciate everything that you've shared, all the experiences you had, and the advice that you've given. It's been great. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, tune into our next episode when we'll have another great interview with a recent return missionary. To check out past episodes of the show, or you can visit our website, returnwithhonorshow.com, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you or someone you know would be a great guest for our show, let us know by sending us an email at rwhshow@gmail.com, and we'll see you next time on Return with Honor.